From saying people should shoot annoying fans to straight up saying he hated white people, here are some of the most controversial things Charles Barkley has ever said, starting off with when he commented on buying women gifts. Apparently, Charles Barkley once said, "I'd never buy my girl a watch. She's already got a clock over the stove." Yikes. It's 2023, Chuck, not 1923. We can't be saying stuff like that anymore. I mean, come on, Chuck. What would your TNT co-worker, the legendary Cheryl Miller, have to say about this? I have a feeling she would not be too impressed. And yet, shockingly, this wasn't the only time Barkley showed his sexist side. He once threatened to hit a female reporter, too. In 2019, the former MVP got into it with a female reporter named Alexi McCammon over their differing political views. Apparently, things got pretty heated, and Barkley made a pretty unacceptable comment. McCammon took to Twitter to reveal that Barkley had told her, "I don't hit women, but if I did, I would hit you." Not cool, Chuck. Not cool. What's worse is that when McCammon rightfully objected to the remark, Barkley dismissed it as a joke. Sorry, Chuck, but I don't think anyone's laughing. Thankfully, Barkley eventually came to his senses and apologized to McCammon for his thoughtless words. Maybe next time, Chuck, just stick to talking basketball, huh? Unfortunately, this isn't the only time he's threatened to hit someone. Let's talk about what he said at Angola. The man just can't help himself when it comes to stirring up trouble, can he? Take, for example, the time he made a not-so-classy comment after the Dream Team beat up on a small African nation's basketball team in the Olympics. Chuck threw an elbow and started a fight, then had the audacity to say that he was afraid the other guy was going to pull a spear on him.
You know, Graham, we don't have to win the Olympics all the time.
So the players have, chemistry, so when they get to the Olympics, obviously.
No, we didn't have any chemistry, right?
For a few years, though.
No, I'm asking you a question. We didn't have any chemistry?
What do you mean?
Really, Chuck? Spears? Which is just culturally insensitive. But let's be real, this isn't the first time Barkley has said something wild about race or other countries. He's got a history of putting his foot in his mouth and saying things that make us all cringe. Like the time a German reporter asked him about NBA groupies back in 1995. Chuck was not amused. He lashed out, telling the reporter and his colleagues to get a freaking life, and saying that he hated white guys. Yikes. Even though Chuck tried to play it off as a joke, the media wasn't having it. They accused him of being a racist, and the whole thing blew up into a big controversy. And while the world was pointing fingers at him, guess what Charles and the NBA did? They just laid back, ignored the haters, and passed it off as just looking for another controversial story to call a player out on. Now let's be real here. We all know that Chuck's a good guy who doesn't actually hate white people, but in this day and age, we've got to be careful with our words, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like race. But Barkley keeps getting himself into hot water, like the time he said something super controversial after a bar fight. During a court hearing for throwing a guy out of a bar window, the judge asked if he had any regrets. Chuck's response? "Yeah, I regret we weren't on a higher floor." Okay, it's kind of funny, but also kind of messed up. The guy could have been seriously injured or even killed if they had been on a higher floor, which is probably what Barkley meant, to be honest. Luckily for Barkley, he got off with just community service and a fine. He's already fortunate the guy wasn't seriously injured. But seriously, Chuck, just be happy with your slap on the wrist and don't make stupid comments like that. I wish we were at the end of the video at this point, but we're not even close. I included Barkley, who has a knack for rubbing people the wrong way and making insensitive comments, like when he defended the cops over killing Breonna Taylor in 2020 after the tragic shooting of Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old black woman who was killed by police officers.
SWAT officers know Taylor is in there, but case the home first. Dramatic body cam footage released by the Louisville Metro Police Department shows Kenneth Walker, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend.
Walk back, I don't send this club! Walk back to me!
Moments after her death.
What did I do?
Charles Barkley decided to weigh in with his 2 cents. I really wish he hadn't. While the entire nation was mourning and demanding justice for Breonna Taylor, Barkley came out in support of the police officers involved in the shooting.
The killing of Breonna Taylor, that
Yes.
you took a lot of heat from
Yes.
our community because you said it was different than how would you have handled that situation differently?
That was really sad and unfortunate. The point I was trying to make her boyfriend did shoot the cops. They ain't the same as the police coming knocking on your door and your boyfriend shoot at the cops.
He even went so far as to say that Taylor's death wasn't as significant as other recent deaths caused by police brutality. Needless to say, this didn't go over well with the public. Fans and the media alike were quick to condemn Barkley for his insensitive and tone-deaf remarks. It's almost like he forgets that he has a platform, and people listen to what he says. But can you believe that this isn't the worst thing Barkley's ever said? That's right. Let's talk about the time he said he'd work for the Ku Klux Klan if they paid him enough. Charles Barkley has quite the reputation for making outrageous statements, even back when people weren't so easily offended. Nowadays, he'd probably be canceled faster than a Netflix show that's been out for 2 days. It's worth noting that Charles was born in 1963, a year marred by tragedy when Ku Klux Klan members bombed a church and killed 4 young black girls. But despite growing up in this crazy time, Charles once made a statement that shocked a lot of people. His exact words were, "I can be bought. If they paid me enough, I'd work for the Klan." Now, no one should be judged solely based on their past beliefs and ideologies, but it is interesting to note that Charles used to question other players, including Michael Jordan, for not speaking up about the struggles of the black community. Yet he himself had made such a controversial statement. Decades have passed since then, but even today, Charles's opinions can still be just as absurd and full of hypocrisy. But that's just who he is, and fans continue to love him for his candor and willingness to speak his mind. Finally, let's wrap up this video with one more signature Charles Barkley controversial statement, the time he offered a pretty violent solution to stop annoying fans. Charles Barkley, the NBA analyst and former player, seems to have a problem with some fans. In fact, he's got so much of a problem that he admitted wanting to use violence against them, which is totally out of line. According to USA Today, Barkley made a guest appearance on Jim Rome's radio show, where he said some ridiculous and not so great things about certain fans. Barkley expressed his frustration regarding fans who are unable to take any criticism of their favorite team or player. He went on to say, "I think it's only a small faction. I think 80% are great. 20%, I wish you could take them out back and just shoot them." Rome tried to give Barkley an out by saying, "Well, maybe not shoot them, Chuck," but Barkley did not back down. "No, I meant that, Jim. 80% of the fans are fantastic, but 20% of them are so mean-spirited and say the most nasty things to you because they know you can't grab them." If Barkley had just laughed it off after Rome interjected, things wouldn't be so bad. But his response of, "No, I meant that, Jim," made it clear that he was serious about wanting to harm those fans, which is very disturbing. And that's all for the most controversial things Charles Barkley has ever said. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.